Supreme Mother and Supreme Lord, sisters and brothers. Today we will discuss the practices of integral yoga for beginners. Our discussion will start from Mother's words. Many times Sri Aurobindo warns us against the imagining of those who believe they can do sadhana without rigorous self-control and who heed all sorts of inspiration which lead them to a dangerous imbalance where all the repressed, hidden, secret desires come out into the open under the pretense of liberation from ordinary convention and ordinary reason. So, without rigorous self-control, we can achieve nothing. So, as a beginners, we have not yet been able to establish direct inner contact with Mother and Master. So, where to find the right solutions? Sri Aurobindo and Mother have already furnished relevant answers to all their possible questions in their extensive writings. All traditional yoga aims at escape into higher nature by rejection of lower nature. Integral yoga aims at transformation of lower nature and its elevation into higher nature. Sri Aurobindo also writes on integral and synthetic yoga embraces the knowledge received from the past. It seeks to organize anew for the present and the future. In traditional yoga, we get different methods for practices of different yoga. There are eightfold methods of sadhana in Ashtanga yoga, like jama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, samadhi, which is derived from Raja Yoga. In synthesis of yoga, Sri Aurobindo also described 4 aids for the beginning of the yoga. Considering the above things, we draw some outlines for the beginning of integral yoga, synthesizing the karma yoga, jnana yoga and bhakti yoga with will, intellect and emotion. At the beginning and for a long period, the following 8 disciplines of exclusive concentration has to be practiced by the beginners. These 8 disciplines are all renunciation, all equality, all consecration, all purification, all concentration, all scriptures, all guru force and all mother force. So, first we discuss all renunciation, that is sarva parigraham. Renunciation is a self-discipline of negative practice in order to arrive at the positive aim of integral yoga. All renunciation includes inner and outer renunciation necessary during the formative stage of integral yoga, and its utility is felt when soul possesses the delight of the divine in all things. So, from the very beginning of this yoga, one has to teach oneself to renounce desire in 3 stages. First, renounce all the lower form of desire and concentrate on the higher desire, that is purity, peace, ananda, love, beauty, etc. Secondly, one has to be taught not to desire anything for one's own separate sake, not to desire even the personal salvation, but for the manifestation of God in the world and for the divine in ourselves. And lastly, one must learn to desire not in its own egoistic way, but in the way of divine. And it must yearn to fulfill a larger and greater way. Then we come to the all equality, sarva samata. Integral yoga demands complete equality, not only of nature, which constitutes our mind, heart and body, but also the self, as the first necessity of spiritual perfection, which can be attained by entire renunciation of desire, attachment and ego. The first step to equality will be purification of heightened and emotional being, which is the source of greatest trouble in inequality. The last and most difficult step is the equality of thinking mind, that is buddhi. All things move towards divine fulfillment. Each experience of suffering and joy, creation and destruction, ignorance and knowledge, hatred and love is a necessary link in carrying out universal movement. And it is our business here to understand and support it without anger, without impatience and trouble. A least revolt reaction is a violence against the master of the world. So, all things should be treated as a divine leela and maintain equality. Then we come to the all consecration, Sarva Jagya. Integral yoga insists on the buddhi, will, and emotion to dwell constantly on the master idea of the surrender and must discourage all the lower things, that is personal will, desire and prana and separative ego. The act of triple sacrifice has to be practiced every moment and every moment of our action, intellect and emotion, from smallest and most ordinary to the greatest and most noble acts. It can be begin by offering a flower, a leaf, or food, action, sleep to the Lord of sacrifice. So, with the growth of surrender, one becomes more powerful and all other opposing hostile forces lose their strength. And two important inner changes are experienced. First, the inmost soul in the heart comes to the front, and secondly, the spiritual being above the head liberates the divine presence. Then we come to the all purification, that is Sarva Suddhi. The object of purification is to make the whole mental being a clear mirror in which the divine reality can be reflected. All purity is a wrong discrimination, a departure from the law of nature. There are two forms of impurity. One is defect born of the nature of our past evolution and gives wrong direction to the instrumental being, that of physical, vital, sensory and intellectual mind. The second impurity is born of the successive emergence of evolving faculties like physical, vital, mental, soul and supermind, and the defect is created by dependence of higher instrument on the lower, which aids to the imperfection or wrong direction. So we have to deal with all these four instruments and set about their purification. All purification is a release, a delivering, a throwing away of limiting, binding, and obscuring imperfection and confusion of a four instrumental nature. Then we come to the all concentration, Sarva Sanjam. The concentration of enlightened will, thought, and heart turned towards one luminous and infinite source of action, knowledge, and delight, the starting point of yoga. The ultimate objective of concentration culminates in samadhi, the settled divine status. This can be done by strenuous method of concentration, concentrated meditation on the one object of integral divine. Secondly, the more strenuous method is the concentrated contemplation, which is the fixing the whole mind in concentration on the essence of idea of integral divine only. In this process, thought ceases and one enters in an inner samadhi. The third is the most strenuous method is the silencing of the mind altogether, either by standing back from mental action or by rejecting the thought suggestion. By this, a great peace is unveiled and one experiences the all-pervading Brahman. Then we come to all scriptures, Sarva Shastra. All Shastra is the outcome and record of past spiritual exercises on the secret of nature and soul and are helpful for all future exploration. The seeker of integral yoga will accept ancient disciplines. The aims of ancient teachings like Sankhya, Tantra, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga are included in integral yoga. First, we can do systematic study of different spiritual experiences and find their interrelation with each other and how these experiences drive towards the supramental realm. Then we come to all Guru force, Sarva Guru Shakti. Sri Aurobindo says, a strict obedience to the wise and intuitive leading of a guide is also normal and necessary for all, but a few specially gifted seekers. The guru of a traditional yoga is a representative of the divine with a combination of part divine realization and ego born of exclusive knowledge. For the beginners of integral yoga, the aid of the guru, Ishtadevata or past avatar in the form of a Buddha, Christ or Sri Krishna, a living example, and present instruction are needed. With the growth of the psychic, spiritual, and supramental being, the dependence on a physical form of Guru is not needed, and one receives all things directly from the integral divine. Lastly, we come to the All Mother Force, Sarva Parasakti. The adoration of the Divine Mother can begin with exclusive concentration and shall culminate in integral concentration. So we can concentrate on Divine Mother, who is all Mother Force, who is the source of all energy. All thought, will, feeling, action will come from her. She is driving the whole universe and she is all. This is a brief discussion of 8 disciplines of integral yoga for the beginners, and practicing this discipline we can go to the next step of the integral.